Come on in, everyone. Come on in because we are here finally doing the recap review, the Ready to Love recap review of Alexis with Little Black Book Kojo on his channel, Little Black Book. Woo! Y'all, I'm tired. I'm emotionally drained. I've been watching this interview. I wasn't able to watch the whole thing in one day, so I had to split it up. I first started watching, I think it was on Friday or Thursday. Friday, I got an hour in, and then, it was a lot. It was a lot, and it was a lot going on in the chat. It was a lot going on in the comment section. It was a lot going on in the interview. And I tell you, I'm exhausted. I am completely exhausted. My head is like, it really, really is. But I'm going to try to put it together. I'm going to try to pull it together because I do have a lot of thoughts about it, y'all. I got a lot of mixed emotions about it. I got a lot going on. I got a lot going on in here in my head, and I got a lot going on in my heart. So I'm going to try to put my heart and my head together for this conversation with you all the best that I can. And I know the reason why I wanted to watch the interview. I wanted to watch the interview because I had questions, right? I had questions about what was the 0 to 100, Alexis? What was the 0 to 100? To me, I felt like there was more to the story than what we saw because I already knew there's a lot going on off camera than we were shown. And so we had to get all these backstories. We had to get, it's almost like we're in a freaking court of law and we got to subpoena witnesses and then eventually come to the end and deliberate and figure out what the real story is. It's exhausting. It is really exhausting. And then, and we hadn't heard from Laylan. We hadn't heard from Alexis, who was a key witness, but we've heard from Mika. We've heard from Koshia. At least we've heard from them on the confessionals. We still haven't heard from them in any of these sort of after interviews. I mean, it really is interesting that none of the women, besides Patricia in the very beginning, have done any of these after interviews. And they are keeping their mouths shut. They are keeping their opinions to themselves for the most part, besides a few ladies who drop down in comments and stuff like that. And I don't know if they're ever going to come on. I don't know if they're ever going to come on for whatever reason that they won't come on. That's up to them. I can understand it. Be honest with you, I can understand them not coming on. But I did want to know, I wanted to get some information from this interview about that. I wanted to know what was the beef? How did the beef start with Koshia and Mika? How did it start? I wanted to learn a little bit more about Alexis, where she came from, how she got where she is. So in that respect, I would say that the interview delivered. It gave me enough. I was able to sift through the 3 hours enough to give me the answers to the questions that I had. I also want to know why she didn't have any friends. Remember, that was one of my concerns about why she wasn't able to make friends with any of the ladies. But what it sounds like is it went left with the ladies pretty early on because towards the end of the whole interview, they finally discussed that it is of her opinion that when they went to that brunch, right, when they went to that little meetup with, interesting enough, the meetup was only Mika, Koshia, and April, which we know those are the three names that appear in the text messages with the men as who was going to go home first. So it is quite a bit ironic that the first brunch was with April, Mika, and Koshia, and they really were the topic of conversation in the first round of elimination in the men's chat. So the fact that this brunch that Alexis had with them is all kind of adding up to me. It really is all kind of adding up to me. I know that there are probably a lot of questions on, I know she mentioned that she felt they taped her. This is what she says, but yet she's never heard the tape. She's never seen the tape. I think she said that a couple of men said they heard the tape, but they didn't feel the tape was that salacious in the first place. But I think the question is, why was there even a tape if there is a tape, if you believe there's a tape? But even if you don't believe the tape, you still know that what did happen was words from that brunch she had with those three ladies did get back to the men. So whether the information was carried back to the men's group in the form of a tape or in the form of words, I'm pretty confident that the first betrayal of trust in the women's group actually was not Alexis. I know a lot of people want to say it was her because she was the one that told Will about what Koshia thought about her. And for the most part, Koshia talked about that. She said that's why she was upset with Alexis, because she felt that Alexis told Will things about her that she didn't say, or she said incorrectly, but Koshia never really cleaned it up and told us, well, what was the real lie? What was the lie that Alexis told? She never did correct us. But what a lot of people have been made to believe all season long was that the first betrayal of trust in the women's group, everyone believed it was Alexis. Everyone believed it was Alexis. And we come to find out, I think, here at the end of the season that I don't think that's the case. Because whether or not you believe there is an actual recording, which I'm not even going to go so far to believe that there is a recording, because I don't really need to know if it was recording. All I really need to know is, was there information carried back from the brunch with Alexis, Koshia, and Mika and April? Was any of the information that they had at that brunch carried back to the men at all, even if it was in the form of words or conversation? And I'm going to say I believe so. I believe it was carried back to probably more than likely LaRon. And I think the people who carried it back were Koshia and Mika. I'm not going to really put April in the middle of it. I think it was Koshia and Mika. Like I said, I've always believed that Mika was, on the women's side, was the messiest. Now, people might then say, well, why, Auntie Deborah, do you believe that the ladies would do that to her? And that brings me back to this interview. So one of the things that Alexis said over and over and over again is that she's the black sheep of her family, that she's the rebel of her family, that she's the outlier. She spent a lot of time talking about her upbringing, and for the most part, compared to a lot of people's upbringing out here, because you hear some really horrible and salacious stories about people's upbringing, she had a good childhood. I know a lot of people want to dig and, really for her to tap into her trauma, but you know what? We all got trauma. Even people who come from good homes or well-to-do families or middle-class families, everybody has some level of, whether you call it trauma or whether you call it influence on your life. We all do. But for the most part, Alexis grew up in a well-stable home. She had parents that have been together for a long time. I think she said she has grandparents that have been together for many, many years. She has a older brother that is in a marriage as well. I know she has another older sister. I don't know if she's married. But she said everybody in her family went, to college. She was the only one that didn't go to college because she was a rebel. She decided to buck the system that her parents had set up for her. The life her parents had set up for her and laid out for her, which was a middle-class upbringing and a path and a road to college. Alexis decided that she wanted to go off on her own and do things on her own. I'll give Alexis this credit. Alexis owns up to a couple of things. One is she owns up to the fact that a lot of her mistakes that she made in life was because she didn't listen and because she wanted to do things on her own way and she was hard-headed. I give her credit because a lot of people come on these after interviews and they can't even admit that simple thing. They can't even admit that they've made mistakes in life, that they've done things wrong, and that a lot of the mess that they find themselves in is really not because of their trauma or their past. It's because of the decisions they made. And one of the things I think Alexis was trying to really point is, I'm not going to blame my parents. I don't care what my parents did wrong. They did a whole lot of things right. So I'm not going to harp on the parts about them that they did wrong or might not have gotten correct, because I'm not going to let that overshadow all the things they did right. And what she decided to do was, I'm going to take full ownership for the decisions that I made in my life, regardless of maybe some missteps by my parent, because no parent is perfect. No parent is perfect. So I'm not going to get here on national TV or YouTube or whatever you want to call it and put so much blame on my upbringing, my parents' decisions, because for the most part, what she was telling us was the mistakes that she's made in her life. The road she's gone down that were wrong roads, she can honestly say she was warned. You see, a lot of my videos, I talk about warning people. Some people never got the warnings. Some people didn't come from a family like Alexis, where they don't even get the warnings. So they just get down the road and they're just blindsided. But what Alexis is saying is, no, I got the warnings. I got the whole memo, everything. I got it all. I read all through it, the warning book. I read through all of it. And what I did was I chucked it and I decided to do what the hell I wanted to do. And guess what? I've paid the price for it. I've paid the price. And I was happy that she owned up to that, because there's an old phrase that's saying you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And what Alexis was saying was that I was led to the water. I was told what was in the water. I was told everything, but I didn't want to drink of the water. And that was my decision. It was not, because not only that, she talked about how loving her family is. She talked about her brother. Her brother was the one who even has tried to get her on more of a right track, who got her into the field she is. She talked about her autoimmune disease, that when life got hard and she was living somewhere else, she had a soft landing space to go to. Her mother caring for her when she was at her worst, debilitated. She had a nice, stable home that she could return to. Like she's almost like a prodigal son, a prodigal daughter. She was saying, yeah, I'm out here in the streets. I'm doing what I want. I'm going on my own path. But when things got hard, I had somewhere to go. A lot of people cannot say that. A lot of people cannot say that they have a nice, stable home to go to, that the reason they're out here in the streets wilding out and doing things they shouldn't be doing, they can't really say it's all because of them. They can look back and say, well, because my mama didn't do this. I didn't have a daddy. We was poor. We was this. What Alexis realizes is she doesn't have any of those excuses. So she has to take accountability for it. And I appreciate that about her. Now, Alexis is actually very brave. I'm going to say it again. Alexis is very brave, almost too brave. I'm going to say that. She's almost too brave. Okay. There's a lot of situations when I look at Alexis and I say, I don't even know why you got to be this tough. I don't even know why you have to be this brave. Some people have to be this brave and this tough out of necessity. It's the only way that they could live. It's the only way that they could survive. But somewhere along the way, Alexis has decided that even though I don't need to be this brave, and even though I don't need to be this tough, I am going to be this tough. I'm going to be this brave. I'm going to create a life of this struggle. For what? For what? What I believe, she talked a lot about this light and the darkness, that there's two sides of Alexis. There's the light side, which is, I guess, the light and the darkness. We talk about the light and the darkness. And she talks about that she has some darkness. And what we saw on that reunion was her darkness. Like she said at the end, you're not going to get the best of me because you messed with me too long. And now you're going to get the worst of me. That's what she said. And so what she talks about is this has been in her life a long time. This light and this dark, this rebel versus this nice upbringing has been a part of Alexis's life the whole time. And what Alexis is out here doing is she's trying to straddle both worlds. She's trying to straddle the nice world of in which she grew up, which is nice and safe and secure, and it's light and it's bright and it's loving and it's warm. But then she's trying to dip over here into the dark side, which is dark and full of strife, and it's fighting and it's angry. And the truth of the matter is, I'm still wondering why Alexis is choosing the world of strife, even in the moments that she says she has. She keeps saying she still goes back and forth. And what we saw on Ready to Love was her going back and forth between those two worlds. We saw the Alexis going from this side of the way she was brought up. You see, when I was praising Alexis on the way that she dates in those first couple of episodes, what I was praising was her upbringing, because I saw it in her. You see, I saw it in her. Because let me tell you, when I'm on here trying to teach women how to be pleasant on dates, when I saw it in Alexis, I saw, wow, she already's got the playbook. Like I said, she already had the playbook. You know who she had the playbook from? She had the playbook from her mother that's been married a long time with Southern roots. She had the playbook from her grandmother. She had the playbook from her sister-in-law that is married to her brother. And she said that that sister-in-law is one of her good friends. Alexis already had the playbook. So when Alexis showed up on this show and I saw her running the playbook of how you lure men in, I said, wow, this girl knows what she's doing. And she even said that people tell her she's a man eater. And you know what? A man eater is a person that can lure men in. They can lure them in because they know how to flirt. They know how to charm. They know how to do everything right that lures the man in. They don't really have to chase men because they have that ability to flirt and lure men in. Well, I saw it in Alexis and I praised her for it. But when I praised her for it, something very interesting happened down in my comments. I got a lot of people writing me that were upset with me about the fact that I liked Alexis's dating style. They really were upset with me. And you guys know me, I'm a thinker. And what I was doing was I was doing these videos on, I think it was a video on Alexis versus, it wasn't even Koshia, it was Rashina, which I liked Rashina too. But I was simply pointing out the fact that I liked Alexis's dating style. Now remember, this is before we saw her really wilding out. I liked her dating style better than I like Rashina. And let me tell you, I received a lot of backlash from it. And one thing I tell you, what I do when I read the comments, I don't really read the comments to listen to what you guys say about me. I listen to the comments to get a better understanding of who you are. That's why I like the comments. That's why I like people to share their point of view, because the comments, I don't use the comments to go there and learn about myself, right? I want to also hear how you all think, right? Where are you coming from? What is your position on things? And when I heard a lot of people getting upset about me because I praised Alexis for her dating style, the way that she interacted with men, and initially, I said, wow, isn't this interesting? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because what I believe happened, here it is right here, everybody listen real carefully, is the same thing that was happening down in my comments, in which women were upset with me praising Alexis on her earlier dating style, is the thing that Koshia and Mika didn't like about Alexis. You see, one thing that has changed out here in the YouTube is a man who changed things a lot. And even though he's gone and he's dead and he's moved on, his name is Kevin Samuels, a lot of what he talked about lingers. It really does linger. And what I believe Alexis represented the very thing that Kevin Samuels praised. He praised a woman that was fit. At that time, she was projecting a very feminine nature. She wasn't a single mother with multiple baby fathers. She was smart. She was beautiful. She was intelligent. She was everything that Kevin Samuels used to put up on a pedestal. So you see, Alexis never really had to put herself on a pedestal, because the truth of the matter is people already put her there. And then some of those people decided they wanted to knock her off. Because if you go back now and you think about why has Alexis been determined at that earlier point in the season, why was she deemed so messy? Why? Because she told Will that Koshia didn't like him? Because now that's what we're finding out. We're not finding out that she was feeding him continuous lots of information, we find out that really probably the extent of the conversation was, you know what? Because she doesn't like you. She doesn't have a lot of good things to say about you. So if you want to make it on this show, you better ship up and you shape out. And from that, we now have all this mess. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe that. That's why I now believe this story that Alexis is telling. And the story is that what the lady sniffed up on, which is Koshia and Mika, when they took her out to brunch, what they saw with Alexis at that brunch was her dark side. Hear me again. I agree with Alexis. She's got a light side and a dark side. She has a rebel side, and she has a side that was instilled in her from her upbringing, from her parents. And when she was in that brunch, mixing and mingling with those guys, she was presenting her upbringing. She was presenting how you act. She was presenting how you flirt with men. She was presenting how you interact with men. But then when she went out to the little side brunch with Mika and Koshia and April, you know the side that she presented? She presented that street side. That side where she was probably running her mouth and she was doing a lot of that tough talking that she did on this interview, right? Where you go, oh, look at that feistiness. Look at that feistiness of Alexis. And she was probably puffing out her chest with that big ego she got. She was doing all that. And what Koshia and Mika did was look at here, look at here. We got a fake one on our hands. We got a girl pretending with the men to be fit and feminine energy, but then we got a girl sitting here in front of us act like she from the streets, and she over here talking about dudes like with this more masculine energy. And what Koshia and Mika said to themselves was, she's fooling the guys. She's fooling the guys. All these guys are hung up on Alexis. Everybody was choosing Alexis. Everyone was choosing Alexis. A lot of them were choosing Alexis. And what Mika and Koshia said was, wow, they're choosing her, but she's fake. Here she is presenting as if she's Kevin Samuel's darling, the fit feminine energy. But the truth of the matter is, look at her over here with all this talk and bravado and chest puffing and masculine energy. So what are we going to do? What is Mika and Koshia going to do? Because remember, Mika and Koshia represent the women that Kevin Samuels talked about. Let's get it straight. Let's get it straight. Okay. Alexis was the woman at the time that Kevin Samuels praised. Koshia and Mika, two baby daddies, would be the women that Kevin Samuels talked about. And what you had here was you had Mika and Koshia who decided they were going to expose Alexis. It's no different than what LaRon was doing. When I talk about conspiracies, and not when I talk about it, when LaRon talks about it, he was the one with the conspiracy. And I'm going to tell you right now that I wholeheartedly believe the story that Alexis told. I may not believe that she was actually taped, but I do believe that Mika and Koshia ran their mouths and went back and told someone, it might have been LaRon, whether it was a tape or not, that Alexis is not who she says she is. She's not this fit feminine person. And you know why I believe that? You know who gave me this thought? Commenters in my comments. Because I had never even thought of this. But when people kept coming in my comments telling me, I don't know why you like Alexis so much. Why do you like her so much? I was like, well, why can't I like a person? This is even before the reunion. Why can't I like a person? Why are you so mad at me liking a person? And it kept going on and on in my comments. They kept trying to bully me not to like her, just like people kept trying to bully me not to like Alonzo. They kept trying to say, then finally someone said it. They said, when Alexis finally lost it on one of her moments, they came back to me and they said, now, are you ready to admit that Alexis is not the fit feminine energy you said she was. I said, well, first of all, I never even used that language. But now that you brought it up, I never even used the energy. I never even thought of it. But now that you have revealed to me what you don't like, now it makes sense. Now I know why you mad I don't like her, because now I know what you don't like. And what you didn't like was you didn't like that she represented at that time fit feminine energy. And now what became of this moment was, now we got it. We can't say that though. We can't say that. But what we got to do now is we got to start calling her messy. Well, I kept saying, I don't really see her being that messy. Do I see that she went back and told Will something that, yeah, it could have been a betrayal of trust of the women's group? Yes. But now that I see what happened to her from the very beginning, that she was the one actually betrayed, then after that, I'm thinking, can we call her the messiest? Can we call her the messiest of the group? But no, by the time this started happening, now Alexis started moving more and more over to her dark side. Once Alexis realized that she wasn't in a safe space with this women's group, once Alexis realized that she was going to get attacked, and she was already on the attack, guess what came back? Her dark side, her rebel side, the side of her that likes to fight. Alexis really does live in a parallel world. She really does. I don't know if this has to do with her being fair skinned. I don't know if Alexis is biracial or if she's just fair skinned. It really doesn't matter, because a lot of people, when they look at her, whether she's not biracial, a lot of people would assume that she is. And a lot of people then treat you based on what their assumption is. So whether she's biracial or not, there are a lot of people that are going to come to her and look at her and feel that she's biracial. So she's going to get treated sometimes differently in the community. Let's be honest. You know, a lot of people want to talk about colorism, and they want to put it all on the fair-skinned woman, that they're the ones causing all the problems with the colorism. But there's also another thing out here in the world called classism within the black community. Let's talk about it. There are a lot of divisions in the black community. It isn't just based on colorism. It's also based on classism. Let's really be honest with it. And what Alexis ran up against when she was dealing with Koshia and Mika, it wasn't colorism. It wasn't. I don't believe it was colorism. What I believe it was classism. That's what I believe. Because I don't believe that Mika and Koshia had very much class. I don't at all. And what they saw in Alexis at the time in the brunch with the men was she was exuding some class. See, even Alexis said, when Alexis said who she got along with in the group, she said there were really only two women that she got along with somewhat or didn't have any beef with. She never really developed a close bond to any of them, but she said Laylan, okay, and she said Vanessa. And of those two women, we would all agree that of the women on the show, both Vanessa and Laylan held themselves with good class. In fact, a lot of you remind me of it every single week. Every single week. And I've said all the time is I never said that Vanessa didn't have class. Between the two of all the women, I agree that Vanessa and Laylan held themselves to the most class. And in the truth of the matter is that is who Alexis said that she felt the most comfortable with. And she also revealed that even in that moment, people had a lot of bad things to say about Laylan. But I bet I know who those were. The people who didn't feel that they were in the same class as Laylan. There is classism in the black community. It isn't always about colorism. So the fact that Alexis said that there were some things said about Laylan who wasn't even there that long, and Laylan is not a fair-skinned woman, okay, tells me that a lot of the division was more about classism. And I'll say it again. I do believe there was some splitting of the lines down the line in this group of women between classisms, because I do see two different sides of the track in this group. I see them. And I'm going to tell you right now that Laylan, Vanessa, and Alexis, in terms of Alexis's upbringing, let's make sure I clarify that, is a completely different area from what I see over here with Koshia and Mika. It is just what I see. So one of the things that I think Alexis really, by her straddling these worlds, I think is why she's getting into a lot of trouble out here. Not only is she getting into a lot of trouble on Ready to Love, she's probably getting into a lot of trouble in her dating life. Because let me tell you, when people see you one way but then they see this other side of you, they become confused. They say, who are you? Are you refined or are you ghetto? And then what I think Alexis does, okay, and this is what I think the rebel part comes in, bucking her growing up, is that I think Alexis wanted to fit into all groups in her life. I think Alexis didn't want to be prejudged as this thin, fragile, dainty, fair-skinned woman. I don't think she wanted that label. And I think she has spent a lot of her time trying to shed the label. And so what she has done is she's overcompensated for it, and she's developed this other part of her, this rebel side. But then what happens is when that rebel side gets her in trouble, typically what she probably does is she goes right back to the safe, cushiony world that she's from. And this is why she's going to have trouble straddling the fence. Because in this world, in the Black community of classism, Alexis, I'm going to talk to you. You will never be really accepted in the world of Koshia and Mika, because what they know inherently about you is that you have not had the struggles that they've had. You have not gone through what they've gone through. And because even though you can go over there and you can go to brunch with them and whatever, you should still remember that they're not going to accept you that way, because they don't look at you as really being from there. Because what they know about you is that any moment in time, you can go back to your cushy world. At any moment in time, you probably can go get a loan from your mom and daddy if you have financial troubles. At any point in time, when you get sick with your autoimmune disease, you can quit your job, you can go home, stay with your parents' house, and you don't have to worry about a thing because they can take care of you. The Mikas and the Koshias of the world, they don't have that luxury. They don't have anybody that can pick up their bills. They don't have anyone where they can go make a soft landing. They're raising 2 kids with fathers that don't even pay child support or enough child support, and they've got weird dynamics over there. You're not part of them. You're not one of them. So when you went to that brunch with them and you let your guard down and you tried to blend in with them and you showed them your dark side, the rebel side, to fit in, which a lot of people do who are biracial or who are fair-skinned. They try to fit in to the Black community. The Black community sniffed them out. That Black community that Koshia and Mika from, they sniffed her out. And then what they did was, we're going to expose her. She's a fake. She's a fraud. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell the man what she said. And now you have Alexis, who is naive to think I could really trickle on over here to this neighborhood. I really could bounce across the tracks and date that guy across the tracks. You see, you can't. You can't. Because although you can, they're not going to accept you. They're not going to accept you. And what Alexis is going to have to do, she's going to have to choose. She's going to have to choose her light or her dark side. She's going to have to choose her family or her upbringing, or she's going to have to choose trying to prove to everybody she's not dainty, she's not fit, she's not feminine, that she doesn't come from a cush life, that she doesn't have the playbook. What for? To hell with these people over here. Lean into what you were made to be. Lean into the life that was set out for you. Nothing's wrong with it. It doesn't mean that you cannot have lunch with Koshia or lunch with Amika. But what you must always remember is they will not accept you. They will not accept you. So stop trying to be accepted from people and places that will not accept you. Find your tribe. Find your tribe where you are comfortable. I say this even about people when you move up in levels in life. We're talking about it over on Summer House Martha's Vineyard. Sometimes there are groups of people who will feel as if you've outgrown them or you've outgrown them. There's nothing wrong with it. It happens. Doesn't mean we got to look down on those people. It just means we don't have that much in common. I can respect you. I can sit and have a glass of wine with you. I can take a shot with you. I can do a whole lot of things with you. But I will always know that if you will never really accept me, and it's okay, because I have a tribe over here that does accept me. This is where I go to get my love. This is where I get my acceptance. Doesn't mean I can't intermingle and talk to people, but I'm not going to try to be something that I'm not just to get accepted by this group over here. And I see that struggle in Alexis. I see her struggling. You see, Alexis told us she was classically trained as a ballet person, but yet she's over here refereeing basketball. What do you want to be, Alexis? And in the end, if you don't want to choose the cush family life, the privileged life, whatever you want to call it, if you don't want to choose that life, I'm okay with that too. If you want to choose the rebel in the street life, then go ahead and choose it. But then what you got to know is when you choose it, a lot of people won't feel it's authentic. They won't believe it. So you're going to struggle. You're going to really struggle, because one of the things I keep saying in my videos is not so much about how you see things, is how people see you. A lot of people say, I don't care about perception, but perception is reality, because reality is how people will treat you and how they perceive you. So even though Alexis may perceive herself as, hey, I'm not this person, right? You know what? I can mix and mingle. Those people don't see you that way. So they're not going to treat you that way. It really doesn't matter how you see yourself, because those people are going to treat you the way they see you. And you don't really need to win over everybody in the world. You don't. You just need to find your tribe that sees you the way you see yourself and that you vibe with. And those people exist. Alexis has been fighting a long time. You could tell. She's been fighting because she goes in circles, and she goes in circles in places in which people don't want to welcome her. You see that she's used to fighting. You see that she's defensive. You see that she's ready to buck up and fight anybody that crosses her. You see it in her. And that's because she's been in a lot of places. She's walked through a lot of doors in which she probably wasn't very well received, because people might have had preconceived notions about her. And then what she does is she likes to buck the system. She likes to stick a square peg in a round hole. You ever heard that saying? So she's always talking about, you're not going to punk me. You're not going to punk me. Because what Alexis is telling us is there's been a lot of situations in her life where people tried to punk her, because she comes into a situation, people perceive her one way, and she goes, no, you're not going to punk me. You're not going to treat me this way. And so what Alexis has spent her life doing is fighting those people. She has spent her life trying to convince those people that she is not who they think she is. And what I'm telling Alexis right now is stop doing that. Stop trying to prove to people who you're not, and go over and start dealing with people who accept you for who you are. Don't try to prove to the Koshia and Mikas of who you are. Don't worry about that. Can Alexis fight? She probably can, because she's probably had to fight all her life. Like you said, all my life I've had to fight. But it's been your choice, Alexis. You're the one who's choosing it. You're the one who's choosing to walk into the middle of uncomfortable positions where people don't want you there. They don't want to be around you. And that's okay. Let me tell you something. When I talk about colorism and classism, there's also something out here called racism. Okay, there are a lot of people who want to run around and stand up to racism every time they see it, all the time. They want to be in a constant fight about racism. I'm not one of those people, because you know what I do? I'm not going to sit and fight in an environment where I find a bunch of racist people and fight them. I'm not going to do that. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to move into an area in which the racism isn't as prominent, and I can thrive, and I can survive, and I can grow. Some people, though, they want to sit over there and fight it. Some people say, well, do you want to ignore racism? No, I didn't say I'm ignoring the racism. I'm very well aware it exists. What I'm choosing to do is I'm choosing to pivot to an area in which it's not so prominent. It's everywhere. I see it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying I'm not choosing to walk into the areas in which I know it's full of it. And that's what I'm telling Alexis. Colorism exists. Classism exists. And if you keep trying to go into areas in which you see colorism or you see classism, then you know what? You're going to be in a world of fighting all the time. You're going to be in a world of strife all the time. And all your energy is going to be spent on fighting people who are never going to accept you. Just like racism, they're never going to accept you. Leave it. Leave it alone. And whatever she decides, whether she's going to live in the world over here with her parents and her upbringing and her sister and brother, or whether she's going to live over here in the world of the streets and the fightings with the people who don't really accept her because they don't believe she's authentic and they don't believe that she could know anything about them, is going to cause problems in her dating life. because just like a woman will pick up on it, so will a man. Which one are you, Alexis? Are you this kind, sweet woman that's going to make a great wife that a lot of men liked about you, fit, feminine, the Kevin Samuels model? Or are you going to be the one that tries to prove to everyone that you're not a pygmisha? Because that's the other thing that's going on here. Bullying women who want to get along with men and calling them pygmishas. Which one do you want to be, Alexis? Maybe you should use your bravery in a different kind of way. Maybe you should use your bravery and your strength and your courage to stand on whatever place you choose. Whichever world you choose. I'm not even tell you which one to choose. Whichever one, use your bravery and courage to stay in that world. But this flip-flopping back and forth is not going to work. It's not going to work. Because when you're being the woman that we saw earlier at the brunch, you're going to attract a certain kind of man. You're going to attract a Will, for instance. Will liked Alexis. But you know what? Will wouldn't have liked the Alexis we saw at the end of the season. Absolutely not. Will comes from that world. He comes from the world of all that fussing and fighting and Pompano Beach. He comes from that world. Will's not looking for that no more. Just like Dominique is not looking for it no more. You see who Dominique chose? Vanessa. Them men are trying, those men, once they get older and they got a little money and they're making a little money, they're trying to run away from them women. They're trying to get over here to the Vanessas and the Alexis and the Leylans of the world. Okay, so when you're in this fit feminine energy, you're going to attract a Will. You're going to attract a Dominique. And then what's going to happen? Who's going to come out next? Are we going to see the dark side of Alexis? We're going to see that part you talk about, the rebel one. That's going to turn off the Dominiques and the Wills of the world. You're not going to get along with them. And next thing you know, you're going to be in a relationship and you're going to be butting heads. Or if you present the dark side of Alexis first, then who are you going to attract? Who are you going to attract then? Or what type of man are you going to attract then who wants all that rawness out of a woman? Then what's going to happen when you want to go over here and slip into this other side of you, the one that can bring the boy home to the father and the mother and the brother and the sister-in-law? And when he don't fit into your family life because he's attracted to the raw Alexis, girl, you're going to have to choose. You're going to have to choose. I'm sorry to tell you. I'm sorry to bring you the bad news that this game plan you got in life of straddling these two worlds is not going to work. It's not going to work in your friendships with women, and it's not going to work in your relationships with men. You're going to have to choose. You see, when Alexis was saying that Mika and Koshia went back and told the men what she was saying when she was in her dark rebel side, and then they start saying she's a gold digger, they didn't know Alexis's background. They didn't know her history. So her it seemed, why would I be a gold digger? Exactly. Because you know what? That's what they think in that world. Just like Mika said to Jonathan, baby mama, that's how they think. Just like when Patrice said, Will must be poor, he must be homeless, sleep on the pallet. People speak from their reference point. So Koshia and Mika were speaking from the reference point, but because you mentioned a man and maybe you mentioned that Will seems successful, they clump you into being a gold digger. Because in their world, that's what it would be. That's how they would view that woman. But in your world, you're like, well, why would I be a gold digger? You see, you're trying to integrate with people who don't even speak your language. They don't even speak. I've talked a lot about this season, that a lot of what people say, a lot of what people are believing about people, you can tell a lot about them just by what they say. I don't get gold digger vibes from Alexis, never have. But why did Mika and Koshia get gold digger vibes? Because that's the world they come from. The fact that she liked and had a connection with Will, they automatically clumped her in as a gold digger. But the truth of the matter is, as Alexis even explained to us, Will ain't even her physical type. It was Will who liked her. It was Will who heavily pursued her. So what Mika and Koshia assumed was that it was her chasing Will, and thus she's a gold digger. But the truth of the matter was, it was actually Will who was sniffing up on her. And truth be told, she said Will ain't even her physical types. She likes men who look more like her. Tall, fair skin, Course Bojo looks. That's her type. That's what gets her going. She said the whole debacle at the reunion was all about she was drunk. Blame it on the alcohol, Jamie Foxx. Blame it on the alcohol. I guess you don't know yourself again, Alexis. You should have known you can't drink like that. Like you said, you all 120 pounds. Why was you drinking that much? Why didn't you decide to put the liquor down? Why didn't you decide to have a glass of water? Know yourself. Know who you are. Know when you can't hang. Know when, even though maybe some of them other women that had a whole lot more weight on them, maybe they could have 5 drinks. Maybe you shouldn't have been trying to hang with them. Maybe you should have been trying to be part of the crowd. Match them toe for toe, drink for drink, knowing that you only 120 pounds and your drink limit is 2. Maybe you should have stuck with who you are and stop trying to straddle these worlds. She was doing a whole lot of tough talking towards the end, talking about she would have whooped Mika's butt. She didn't use butt, she used ass. She said she was embarrassed. I'm sure she is. I'm sure that she comes from is extremely embarrassed and disappointed. She said that she had to apologize to them. She says, but I don't want no apology to these other people. I'm sorry the way I handle it. I'm sorry that that's what I did. I apologize for that. But I'm not sorry about the way I felt, because the way I felt is the way that I felt. And I heard her apology. I think that she is taking accountability. I feel that she took accountability. I think that she took enough accountability. I think that she's done enough self-reflection to know that what she did was wrong. But the part where she needs to do a little bit more self-reflection is a little bit more about what I've been talking about. That these scenarios that she's finding herself in, not only on this show, but I can tell she's been in it before, because the way that Alexis handled this situation tells me she's been here before. This isn't a one-off. This isn't, oh, I've never been here before and this is the way I handle it. I handle it wrong. No, Alexis has been in this situation before. Alexis has run up against women like this before. So she's handled it this way before. It just may not have been caught on tape. She's handled it this way before. And so what I want to get past is I want to get past the notion that this is just a one-time thing, because that I don't believe. I don't believe it's a one-time thing, because what I believe about Alexis is she straddles 2 worlds. She straddles 2 worlds. And whenever she goes into this dark side, this other world, and she starts hanging around people who sniff her out and realize she's really not a part of this world, that's when she keeps trying to prove to them that she can get at it, that she can whoop some ass, that she can do that. You don't need to prove that, Alexis. You don't need to prove that. You don't need to prove that. I think she's getting there. I think one of the things she started to talk about out loud was that she's putting together the piece of the puzzle, that when she's been in dark places and she's done dark things, she realizes that she is doing it of her own volition, that she's a common denominator. I think the part that she's struggling with is not understanding that she has to choose. She really does believe that she can straddle these 2 worlds. You can't. Once a man starts making a lot of money, he too has to come to grips with, can't always go back to the hood. I can't hang out on the corner. It's unfortunate. Sure, some people, they don't want to give up their old friends. They don't want to give parts about that life that they like. But they start to realize that they're really not part of that world anymore. And as a result, that world becomes more dangerous to them than it does become a comfort. And I think maybe when Alexis was younger, she wanted to be accepted by that other world. She didn't want to be this girl on a pedestal who was thin and privileged and all this. She didn't want people to ostracize her. She wanted to be included in all groups. And I think she spent a lot of time trying to fit into different groups. And this is what causes problems, not only in her life, in her relationships with women, because I noticed that right away. I think she has problems building relationships with women. And I believe she has problems building relationships with men. And that is because she straddles 2 worlds and people don't know who she is. And when she comes in either one of those worlds, they see part of that other world and they don't like it. Because let me tell you, all that rah-rahness she had, even if she was over in the world that her family laid out for her, some of those people are going to shun her too, because they don't like the rah-rah world. They don't like the rah-rah world. She is absolutely going to have to choose, and she's going to have to neutralize one part of her. And I don't know what part she's going to choose. That's up to her to decide. I have my opinion. I have my opinion. I say go where you're loved. I say go where you're cared for. I say go for that place, and then you adjust. That's what I say, as opposed to trying to go to a world in which people will never accept you. They don't want to accept you. They don't want to like you. They don't want to be around you. And any little thing you do, no matter how small it may be, they're not going to like you. Anything you do, it really actually didn't matter what Alexis did. In the end, they were not going to like Alexis. They can point to the fact that the reason that they didn't like Alexis was because Alexis told Will about Koshia. But truth be told, if that moment didn't happen, there would have been another moment, because the reason why these ladies did not like Alexis was the same reason one of my viewers dropped down in my comment and told me about myself and said, now, are you ready to admit that Alexis is not the fit feminine woman you wanted her to be? That would have always been the thing, would have been to expose Alexis and to out Alexis. That's my advice. That's how I saw the whole interview, y'all. I'm not going to go on all that other stuff that went on. I know a lot went on, but I'm choosing to leave that on the floor. But what a season. What a season. I think we got a few more interviews. I think a Little Black Book, because she is going to interview Maya. And I wouldn't count on too many of these other women coming to the mic. I don't see it happening. And I'm okay with that too. Maybe it's time to put the season to rest. But we'll see. If there becomes another interview, I'll see you guys back here. If not, I will see you on that new show that's going to premiere on Friday on the new dating show. We all have to watch it and see if we like it, and we'll talk about that. Talk to y'all later. Bye.